Everyone thinks Vampire Diaries is just a teen romance show, but they've got it all wrong. Yes, there's love triangles, heartbreak, and drama, but that's just surface noise. The real story, brotherhood, loyalty, and the yin and yang of two brothers navigating immortality, power, and morality. Stefan and Damon are the heart of this show. Their bond, rivalry, and sacrifices drive every season. And honestly, if you've been watching for romance, you've been missing the point the whole time. So buckle up. We're diving into why Vampire Diaries is way deeper than a teen love story and why it's secretly a masterclass in duality. Vampire Diaries is set in Mystic Falls, a quiet American town that looks normal on the surface, but is built on generations of supernatural violence, secrets, and buried history. Vampires, witches, werewolves, hybrids, all of them exist here, not by accident, but because this town is a crossroads of power. But here's where people misunderstand the show. The story does not revolve around Elena Gilbert. She is not the engine. She is a catalyst. The real foundation of Vampire Diaries is the Salvatore brothers. Stefan and Damon are not just vampires with different personalities. They represent two opposing philosophies of existence. Stefan believes control is morality. Damon believes acceptance of darkness is honesty. One brother suppresses his nature to stay good. The other embraces his nature and chooses when to care. This is a yin and yang of the series. Every major event in Mystic Falls traces back to this duality. Every war, every sacrifice, every alliance, every betrayal is shaped by the tension between these two brothers trying to coexist in the same world. Elena enters the story not as a prize, but as a mirror. She reflects their choices back at them. She exposes their weaknesses. She forces them to confront who they really are, not who they pretend to be. The romance exists, but it is not the point. It is a pressure applied to a much deeper bond. At its core, Vampire Diaries asks a simple question. If you and your brother are both monsters, do you survive by becoming opposites, or by destroying each other? And that question drives the entire series. At the heart of Vampire Diaries is a simple but powerful conflict. Two brothers, one curse, two completely different responses to it. Stefan Salvatore believes that being good means control. He starves himself, suppresses his instincts, and constantly punishes himself for the damage he has caused. His morality is built on denial. He believes that if he resists his nature hard enough, he can earn redemption. But this comes at a cost. Stefan's control is fragile. When it breaks completely. His darkest moments are not accidents. They are the result of years of repression exploding all at once. The more he tries to be perfect, the more destructive his failures become. Damon Salvatore is the opposite. Damon does not deny what he is. He accepts the darkness and lives honestly with it. He does not pretend to be good for the sake of appearances. His morality is selective, not universal. He will burn the world for the people he loves, and he is unapologetic about it. Where Stefan chooses restraint, Damon chooses loyalty. This is why their conflict is not about good versus evil. It is about two philosophies of survival. Stefan believes morality is about rules. Damon believes morality is about people. This tension defines every major moment in the series. When decisions must be made, Stefan asks what is right. Damon asks who matters. Neither approach is perfect. Both lead to tragedy in different ways. What makes this dynamic powerful is that neither brother is fully wrong. Stefan needs Damon's honesty to avoid becoming a hypocrite. Damon needs Stefan's restraint to avoid becoming a monster without limits. They balance each other, even when they are trying to destroy one another. The show constantly tests this balance by putting the brothers in situations where they cannot both be right. Every sacrifice, every betrayal, and every loss forces them to choose between their bond and their beliefs. And no matter how many enemies they face, the most dangerous conflict in Vampire Diaries is always the one between the Salvatore brothers themselves. Because the real question is never whether they will defeat the villain of the season. The real question is whether their brotherhood will survive it. Elena Gilbert is often presented as the emotional center of Vampire Diaries. But when you actually step back and analyze her role, she is one of the most self-absorbed and destructive characters in the entire series. Elena does not just exist in the story. The story bends around her. Every conflict somehow becomes about her feelings. Every sacrifice must pass through her emotional filter. Entire groups of people die, towns are destroyed, and ancient supernatural wars are reignited. Also, Elena can process another internal crisis. And the most frustrating part is that she is framed as selfless. Elena constantly talks about how she does not want people to get hurt for her, yet every major decision she makes results in other people bleeding, dying, or losing everything they care about. She does not stop the chaos. She just feels bad about it afterwards. That is not morality. That is emotional narcissism. Elena thrives on being the center of gravity. Stefan and Damon's entire brotherhood is repeatedly torn apart because she refuses to acknowledge the damage her presence causes. Instead of stepping back, she leans in harder, allowing both brothers to orbit her emotional needs. She does not choose love. She chooses attention. And the show constantly excuses this behavior by calling it trauma. But trauma does not justify making every situation about yourself. What makes Elena especially frustrating is that she rarely grows. She reacts, she cries, she apologizes, and then she repeats the same patterns. Her pain is always treated as more important than everyone else's suffering, even when others have lost far more. Bonnie loses family, freedom, and her future. Caroline loses autonomy, safety, and innocence. Stefan and Damon lose their bond over and over again. Elena loses control of the room. And yet the narrative insists she is a moral compass. This is why Vampire Diaries is better when it stops focusing on Elena and starts focusing on the brothers. The moment the show shifts away from her emotional gravity, it becomes sharper, darker, and more honest. Elena is not the heart of the story. She is a distraction. And once you realize that, the entire show makes more sense. Katherine Pierce works because the story is never about her feelings. It is about her impact. Unlike Elena, Katherine does not pretend to be the moral center of the world. She knows exactly what she is. She is manipulative, selfish, and ruthless, and the show never asks you to excuse it. That honesty is what makes her compelling. Katherine's real purpose in Vampire Diaries is not romance. It is conflict resolution through opposition. When Katherine enters a story, the focus immediately shifts away from love triangles and emotional indecision. Stefan and Damon stop competing for attention and start confronting a shared reality. They are no longer rivals. They are brothers facing a common threat. Katherine exposes the truth that Elena hides. She proves that the brothers are strongest when they are aligned, not divided. She forces them onto the same page, not because she brings them together emotionally, but because she threatens them both equally. This is why Katherine is the best female lead in the series. Not because she is powerful, not because she is seductive, but because she removes herself from the center of the narrative. With Katherine, the story becomes about strategy, trust, and survival. Stefan and Damon stop asking who they love and start asking who they can rely on. Their bond sharpens. Their loyalty is tested in meaningful ways. And most importantly, Katherine never pretends to be the reason they should change. She does not demand sacrifice. She does not ask for protection. She does not frame herself as a victim. She simply exists as a force that reveals who the brothers truly are when emotional manipulation is stripped away. In a strange way, Katherine makes the brothers better by proving they are better without her. She reminds them that their greatest strength has never been romance. It has always been brotherhood. And that is why, narratively, Katherine Pierce succeeds where other characters fail. She strengthens the core of the show instead of hijacking it. Outside of Stefan and Damon, the most authentic relationship in Vampire Diaries is not romantic at all. It is a friendship between Bonnie Bennett and Damon Salvatore. At the start of the series, Bonnie and Damon should never work. Damon is reckless, violent, and selfish. Bonnie is principled, empathetic, and constantly sacrificing herself for others. They are positioned as enemies by default. That is exactly why their bond feels real. Their relationship is built through shared suffering, not attraction. There is no competition, no manipulation, and no emotional leverage. They are forced to rely on each other when everything else is stripped away. What makes the Bonnie and Damon dynamic special is that it is the only relationship where Damon is not rewarded for charm or punished for honesty. Bonnie sees him clearly. She does not excuse him, but she also does not reduce him to a monster. And Damon changes because of that. For the first time, Damon learns loyalty without desire. He protects Bonnie not because he wants her approval, but because he respects her strength. Bonnie becomes a moral anchor Damon actually listens to, not because she demands it, but because she earns it. Bonnie, on the other hand, stops being treated as a tool. With Damon, she is not just a witch who fixes everything. She is a person with boundaries, anger, humor, and agency. Damon does not expect her to save the world for free. He acknowledges the cost of her sacrifices. Their friendship works because it is honest. There is no illusion that either of them is perfect. They fight. They clash. They say things that hurt. But when it matters, they choose each other without hesitation. In a show obsessed with romance and destiny, Bonnie and Damon represent something rare. A bond built on trust, mutual respect, and shared survival. And in many ways, it is the healthiest relationship in the entire series. Not because it is soft, but because it is owned. Vampire Diaries is a genuinely good show, but it is also deeply flawed. And the reason it works is the same reason it sometimes becomes hard to watch. The good comes from its characters and dynamics. The Salvatore brothers carry the emotional weight of the series. Their conflict, loyalty, and shared history give the show a backbone that never fully collapses. Even when the plot gets messy, their bond keeps the story grounded. The lore also works. Vampires, witches, hybrids, and originals are introduced with clear rules and consequences. Power has a cost. Immortality is not glamorous. Death is never clean, and survival always demands sacrifice. But the cringe comes from excess. The show often mistakes emotional intensity for depth. Characters die and come back too often, which cheapens loss. Love triangles are dragged out long past their expiration date. Emotional speeches replace meaningful growth, and drama is sometimes forced instead of earned. There are moments where the writing forgets its own strengths. Instead of letting silence, loyalty, or action speak, it leans into over-explaining feelings that were already obvious. And yet, despite all of this, Vampire Diaries survives. It survives because when the show stops chasing romance and starts focusing on brotherhood, loyalty, and consequence, it becomes powerful again. The best arcs are never about who ends up with who. They are about who stand together when everything falls apart. This is why the show still holds up. Not because it is perfect, but because underneath the cringe, there is a story about identity, sacrifice, and choosing your people over your desires. And when Vampire Diaries remembers that, it works. Vampire Diaries has always been misunderstood. It is not a love story. It is not about destiny or soulmates. And it is definitely not about who Elena chooses. At its core, Vampire Diaries is a story about brotherhood. It is about two brothers cursed with immortality, forced to live with their worst mistakes, and constantly pulled in opposite directions by morality, power, and loyalty. Everything else in the show exists to test that bond. Romance creates tension. Villains create pressure. Loss creates consequence. But brotherhood is a constant. The strongest moments in the series are not kisses or confessions. They are sacrifices, forgiveness, choosing each other when it would be easier not to. The show is at its best when it remembers that survival is not about being good or bad, but about who you stand with when everything collapses. That is why Vampire Diaries still resonates. Not because it is flawless, not because it avoids cringe, but because underneath all the noise, it tells a timeless story about loyalty, identity, and the cost of choosing your people. And once you see it through that lens, the entire show changes. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want more honest, no-filter analysis on TV shows and stories people get wrong, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. More videos like this are on the way.